The morning light filtered weakly through the thin curtains of the Martinez kitchen, turning the room a dull gray. The smell of coffee lingered in the air, bitter and heavy. Sophia Martinez sat across from her stepmother at the worn wooden table, her stomach tightening with each second of silence that passed between them. Her voice cracked as she finally spoke. You did what?" Vanessa Reed didn't even flinch. She sat perfectly composed, her manicured nails tapping rhythmically against the side of her porcelain coffee mug. Her expression was calm. Too calm, as though the words she was about to say carried no weight at all. "I used it for the wedding," she replied, shrugging like she was discussing pocket change. "Dylan needed help with the costs, and it was family money. You'll get over it." Sophia felt her chest tighten, her heartbeat quickening in disbelief. "Family money?" she repeated, her voice rising despite the lump in her throat. "That was my money. I worked 2 years waiting tables to save for college, Vanessa. You promised you'd invest it for me." "And I did," Vanessa shot back, her tone sharp now, irritation creeping in. "I invested it in something important, your brother's wedding." "He's not my brother," Sophia whispered fiercely, her nails digging into her palm under the table. Dylan Reed, Vanessa's only child, wasn't even in the room. He rarely was during confrontations. He didn't need to be. As far as he was concerned, his lavish wedding, with its crystal chandeliers, imported flowers, and a venue that probably cost more than Sophia's entire tuition, was a dream worth sacrificing anyone else's future for. Certainly hers. Sophia's blood boiled, anger bubbling so high she thought it might choke her. Before she could unleash it, footsteps echoed from the hallway. Her father, Daniel Martinez, shuffled into the kitchen, still in his work slacks, coffee mug already in hand. "What's all this yelling about?" he asked, his eyes darting between them. "Ask Vanessa," Sophia snapped. Her voice shook but didn't waver. "She spent my college savings on Dylan's wedding." Daniel blinked, his brow furrowed in confusion as he turned toward his wife. Vanessa merely brushed past him, the faintest smirk tugging at her lips as she grabbed her purse from the counter. "I don't have time for this nonsense," she said lightly. "We'll talk later." "Wait, Vanessa," Daniel called after her, but she was already gliding out the door, leaving behind only the sharp click of her heels against the tile. Sophia sat frozen, her throat dry, fury and despair colliding inside her. "Why didn't you tell me?" Daniel finally asked, scratching the back of his neck, his voice awkward, as if he didn't know which side to take. "I didn't know until just now," Sophia said, her voice trembling. "She said she'd invest the money for me, Dad. And now it's gone. All of it. On Dylan's wedding." Daniel frowned, his shoulders slumping, but his eyes, those tired, hazel eyes, avoided hers. "I'm sure there's been some kind of misunderstanding," he mumbled. "I'll talk to her." "A misunderstanding?" Sophia's voice cracked as it rose, raw with disbelief. "Dad," she admitted it. "She doesn't even think she did anything wrong." But Daniel didn't answer. He muttered something about being late for work and disappeared upstairs. And just like that, Sophia was alone again, sitting in the quiet kitchen with nothing but the sting of betrayal pressing down on her chest. That night, Sophia lay on her bed staring at the ceiling, the shadows of the trees outside casting restless patterns across her room. The more she thought about it, the more the anger solidified into something sharper. Resolve. Vanessa had stolen her future. Dylan had laughed about his dream wedding like it was owed to him. And her father, he was too spineless to stand up for her. But Sophia wasn't going to let it end like this. If her father wouldn't fight for her, she would fight for herself. The next morning, she sat in the library, her laptop open but untouched. Her hands trembled slightly as she picked up a flyer from the corkboard by the entrance. It was simple, with black and white lettering. Clark Benson, attorney at law. Specializing in small claims and financial disputes. Free consultations. She dialed the number before she could lose her nerve. "Benson Law Office," a calm male voice answered. I need to know if there's anything I can do," Sophia said, the words spilling out in a rush. "It's my savings. I worked for it. My stepmother spent it without my permission." Can I get it back? There was a pause. Then the voice softened. Possibly. If you can prove the money was yours and that she used it without your consent, you may have a case. But it won't be easy. Are you prepared to go to court? Sophia hesitated, gripping the phone tighter. Taking Vanessa to court felt drastic. Dangerous. But what choice did she have? Yes, she said firmly. I'm prepared. When she told her father about the lawsuit that evening, Daniel looked horrified. Sophia, do you really want to do this? He asked, pacing the living room, his voice strained. It's just going to cause more tension in the family. She already caused tension. Sophia snapped. She stole from me, Dad. This isn't about family, it's about what's right. Daniel rubbed his forehead, muttering, I just don't want this tearing us apart. It already is, Sophia said quietly. Later that night, Vanessa cornered her in the hallway, her lips curling into a cruel smirk. So, she drawled, her voice thick with disdain. What's the plan, Sophia? You're going to drag your family through the mud over a few $1,000s? Real mature. It's not just a few thousand, Sophia said, her voice steady even though her hands trembled at her sides. It's my future. And I won't let you take that from me. Vanessa leaned closer, her perfume suffocating. Do what you have to do, sweetheart. But you won't win. And in that moment, Sophia knew there was no turning back. The days after Sophia announced her decision to sue Vanessa felt like living inside a pressure cooker. Every corner of the Martinez house hummed with unspoken tension. Meals were eaten in near silence. Footsteps seemed louder, and every time Sophia crossed paths with Vanessa, the air thickened with venom. Her father avoided her more than ever, retreating into the garage where he tinkered with half-finished projects no one cared about. Sophia sometimes stood outside the door, hearing the soft whir of tools, wondering if he was hiding from her or from the truth. Probably both. Vanessa, on the other hand, thrived in confrontation. She made no effort to conceal her contempt. Maybe save up again, she quipped one morning, leaving a sticky note on the fridge with a smiley face drawn in mocking curves. Third time's the charm. Sophia crushed the note in her fist. She wanted to scream, to throw the refrigerator door shut hard enough to rattle the whole house. But instead, she stuffed the note deep into her pocket and reminded herself, the courtroom would be her battlefield, not this kitchen. Attorney Clark Benson's office smelled faintly of paper and coffee, the kind of place that seemed permanently suspended in a mix of exhaustion and focus. He was a man in his mid-40s with salt and pepper hair and a steady, patient manner that immediately calmed Sophia. We'll need more than just your word, he explained during their first proper meeting. The key is proving the money was yours and that Vanessa used it without your consent. Do you have bank statements? Pay stubs? Anything that shows where the money came from? Sophia nodded eagerly and slid a folder across the desk. Inside were copies of her deposits from the diner where she'd worked for 2 years. Each deposit was marked in her neat handwriting. College fund. I also gave her a note when I handed her the money, she added, her cheeks flushing as she remembered. It wasn't formal, just, I wrote that this was for investment purposes. I thought it would help. Benson studied the papers carefully, then looked up, his expression thoughtful. It's not perfect, but it's a start. Combined with her admission that she used it for Dylan's wedding, we have grounds. I'll also subpoena her financial records. If she spent the money, it should show up there. Sophia exhaled for what felt like the first time in weeks. For once, she wasn't powerless. The pushback. But Vanessa wasn't about to make things easy. She upped her campaign of psychological warfare, tossing casual insults like knives every chance she got. Do you really think a judge will care about your little waitress savings? She sneered one evening while Sophia washed dishes. College isn't for everyone, sweetheart. Maybe you're better off without it. Sophia's hands clenched around the sponge until her knuckles went white, but she didn't look up. We'll see what the judge thinks. Vanessa laughed, a low, cruel sound that made Sophia's skin crawl. Her father was no better. One night, he appeared in her doorway, looking older than his years. Do you really want to go through with this? He asked quietly. Vanessa's furious, and you know how she gets when she's angry. Sophia didn't look away from her laptop, where she was combing through legal guides. She's furious because she got caught. And yes, Dad, I'm going through with it. Daniel rubbed a hand over his thinning hair, sighing heavily. I don't want this to tear the family apart. That broke something in her. She slammed the laptop shut and finally met his eyes. She already tore it apart when she decided I didn't matter, Sophia snapped. This isn't my fault, it's hers. He didn't answer. He simply stood there for a moment, shoulders sagging, before retreating down the hallway. Maya's support. When the weight of it all grew too much, Sophia leaned on Maya Khan. Maya had been her best friend since middle school, the kind of friend who could read Sophia's moods with a single glance. They sat across from each other at their usual cafe, steam curling from paper cups of cappuccino. You're doing the right thing, Maya said firmly, brushing her dark hair from her face. She had no right to take your money, and she deserves to face the consequences. But what if I lose? Sophia whispered, the fear gnawing at her again. What if the court sides with her? What if all of this just makes things worse? Maya reached across the table, squeezing her hand. Then you'll still know you stood up for yourself. And that matters. You've worked too hard to let her walk all over you. Sophia swallowed hard, blinking back tears. Maya's words wrapped around her like armor, steadying her. Gathering evidence. The weeks blurred into a rhythm of preparation. Sophia gathered pay stubs, dug through old notebooks where she'd scribbled budgeting plans, even found a receipt from the bank teller who had accepted her last deposit. Every piece felt like a lifeline, proof that she wasn't crazy, that she wasn't just some naive teenager blowing things out of proportion. Attorney Benson guided her through it all, patient but thorough. We're not just building a case for the money, he explained. We're building a case that shows your stepmother betrayed your trust. Judges respond to patterns, to behavior. If she's been mismanaging money in other ways, we'll expose that too. That thought both thrilled and terrified Sophia. What else had Vanessa been hiding? Cracks in the facade. It didn't take long to find out. When Benson subpoenaed Vanessa's records, the results were shocking. Among the transactions for Dylan's wedding were large withdrawals, thousands of dollars, funneled into a personal account under Vanessa's name. Luxury handbags, resort vacations, spa treatments, all paid for out of accounts she shared with Daniel. Daniel had known nothing about it. This changes things, Benson told Sophia during their final pretrial meeting. This isn't just about your savings anymore. This is a pattern of financial mismanagement. It paints her as untrustworthy, selfish, and manipulative. It strengthens your case considerably. Sophia sat in stunned silence, the folder of financial statements heavy in her lap. She'd always known Vanessa was self-serving. But this was betrayal on another level. Do we tell my dad? She asked hesitantly. That's up to you, Benson said gently. But if we present it in court, he'll know. That night, Sophia lay awake, staring at the ceiling as the truth gnawed at her. If she revealed Vanessa's financial secrets, her father's world would crumble. He'd be humiliated, shattered. But hadn't he chosen ignorance already? Emma, he deserves to know, Maya told her softly over the phone. He's been living in her shadow for too long. Maybe this is what he needs to finally wake up. Sophia closed her eyes, tears pricking at the corners. Deep down, she knew Maya was right. Countdown to trial. As the court date crept closer, the atmosphere in the Martinez house grew unbearable. Vanessa alternated between icy silence and cutting remarks. Daniel barely looked at Sophia at all, as though avoiding eye contact could erase the looming storm. But Sophia no longer cowered. Each snide comment, each dismissive glance only fueled her determination. She wasn't the quiet girl who slipped through the cracks anymore. She was someone who had been wronged and who was ready to fight back. The night before the hearing, she sat at her desk, reviewing her notes one last time. Her hands trembled, but her resolve didn't falter. This isn't just about the money, she whispered to her reflection in the darkened window. It's about me, about my future. And I won't let her take that from me. For the first time in months, Sophia fell asleep without fear. Tomorrow, the battle would begin. The courthouse loomed like a stone fortress, its tall windows glinting in the pale morning sun. Sophia stood at the bottom of the steps, clutching her folder of documents so tightly her knuckles were bloodless. Her heart pounded against her ribs, but Attorney Benson's steady voice cut through the fog of fear. "Remember, Sophia, you're not here to fight with Vanessa. You're here to tell your truth. Keep your answers clear, stick to the facts, and let me handle the rest." Sophia nodded, drawing in a deep breath. Her black blazer felt stiff across her shoulders, but it made her look older, stronger, more capable than she felt inside. When Vanessa arrived, sweeping up the courthouse steps in a scarlet dress and oversized sunglasses, Sophia's stomach clenched. Dylan trailed behind her, dressed sharply but looking uncomfortable, as though he'd rather be anywhere else. And then came Daniel. Her father's eyes flicked between Sophia and Vanessa, torn, weary, and haunted. He gave Sophia the smallest nod of acknowledgement, but no words. It was enough to make her chest ache. Inside the courtroom smelled faintly of wood polish and old paper. Sunlight slanted through tall windows, casting long stripes across the floor. Sophia sat beside Benson at the plaintiff's table. Vanessa and her lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Ms. Harding, settled opposite them. Vanessa radiated confidence, her chin lifted, her expression smug. "All rise," the bailiff announced as the judge entered. Judge Miriam Ellis, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and a stern gaze, took her seat. The trial began. Opening statements. Benson rose first. "Your Honor, this case is about trust. My client, Sophia Martinez, worked tirelessly for years, saving every dollar she could toward her college education. She entrusted those savings to her stepmother, Vanessa Reed, under the belief they would be safeguarded. Instead, that money was taken without permission and spent on expenses unrelated to my client. Today, we will prove that Vanessa Reed misappropriated funds that did not belong to her, and in doing so, jeopardized Sophia's future." His words were steady, deliberate, and strong. Sophia felt a rush of pride. Then Ms. Harding stood. Her tone was smooth, almost pitying. "Your Honor, this case is not about theft. It's about misunderstanding. Ms. Reed accepted Sophia's contribution to family expenses in good faith. The money was used responsibly for her stepson's wedding, an event that benefited the entire family. This is not misappropriation. This is a young woman's resentment, dressed up as a lawsuit." Sophia clenched her fists under the table. Misunderstanding? Resentment? The words burned.
Testimony.
Sophia was the first to testify. She rose, swore her oath, and sat in the witness chair, her pulse thundering in her ears. Benson's questions were gentle. "How long did you work to save this money?" 2 years, Sophia answered. "At the diner in town. I put almost all my wages into a savings account." "And why did you give this money to Vanessa?" "I believed she would keep it safe until I enrolled in college. She promised she would." "And did you give her permission to use it for any other purpose?" "No," her voice shook but didn't break. "Never." Benson nodded, satisfied. "No further questions, Your Honor." Ms. Harding approached. Her heels clicked against the wooden floor like a metronome. "Miss Martinez," she began smoothly, "isn't it true that you lived in Ms. Reed's household during the time you saved this money?" "Yes." "And that she provided food, shelter, and clothing for you?" "Yes, but..." "So it wouldn't be unreasonable, then, for her to use some of your savings toward family expenses, would it?" "No." Sophia's voice rang out, sharper than she intended. "That money was mine. I worked for it. She never asked me. She just took it." A ripple of murmurs spread through the small gallery. Ms. Harding raised an eyebrow but stepped back, feigning indifference. "The evidence." Benson then introduced the bank statements, Sophia's handwritten notes, and the subpoenaed financial records. He laid them out methodically, showing the judge exactly how the funds had been moved. When the luxury purchases appeared on the screen, Vanessa's composure cracked. A flicker of alarm passed across her face, quickly replaced by indignation. "These are my personal expenses," she snapped when questioned. What I do with my money is none of your business. But they weren't your funds, were they? Benson countered calmly. They were drawn from accounts to which Sophia contributed. Accounts you told her were safe. Vanessa faltered, her lips thinning into a hard line. Daniel called to testify. The courtroom shifted when Daniel Martinez was called to the stand. He looked smaller somehow, shrunken under the weight of scrutiny. Mr. Martinez, Benson began gently, were you aware that your daughter had entrusted her savings to your wife? Daniel hesitated, glancing at Vanessa. Yes, she mentioned it. And did you ensure that money was protected for your daughter's education? Daniel's throat worked as he swallowed. I assumed Vanessa would handle it. Did you give her permission to spend it on Dylan Reed's wedding? His voice was barely audible.
No.
The silence that followed was deafening. When Ms. Harding cross-examined, Daniel grew flustered, stumbling over words. But the damage was already done. He had admitted the truth. He hadn't protected his daughter. Vanessa's turn. Finally, Vanessa herself took the stand. She spoke with theatrical indignation. I treated Sophia like my own. I included her in family events. I made sure she had what she needed. That money was for all of us. She should be grateful, not vindictive. Benson's cross-examination cut through her performance. Did you ever ask Sophia for permission to use her savings? No, but... Did you ever inform her you intended to use them for Dylan's wedding? No, but it was a family expense. So, you admit you used her money without her consent. Vanessa's face flushed crimson. I did what I thought was best. Judge Ellis's gaze sharpened like a blade. The gavel tapped once for silence. Closing arguments. Benson rose for the final time. Your Honor, this case is clear. A young woman's trust was broken. Her future was jeopardized. The defense calls it a misunderstanding, but the evidence shows deliberate misuse of funds. Sophia Martinez deserves justice, and she deserves her future back. Ms. Harding countered with a smooth dismissal. Your Honor, at worst, this was poor communication within a family. Not theft. Not misappropriation. We urge you not to turn a family disagreement into a legal judgment. The judge nodded solemnly, making notes. The courtroom adjourned for deliberation. Sophia sat frozen, her hands cold, her chest tight. Maya had come to support her, sitting quietly in the back, and now squeezed her shoulder reassuringly. Vanessa whispered furiously to her lawyer. Dylan stared at the floor. Daniel sat slumped, hollow-eyed, like a man realizing too late what he had allowed to happen. When the judge returned, every breath in the room seemed to still. The verdict. Judge Ellis's voice was steady and firm. After reviewing the evidence, it is the court's conclusion that the funds in question belong to the plaintiff, Sophia Martinez. The defendant, Vanessa Reed, used these funds without consent, constituting misappropriation. Therefore, the court rules in favor of the plaintiff. Vanessa Reed is ordered to repay the full amount of $14,820 to Sophia Martinez, along with additional penalties for misuse of entrusted funds. A stunned silence followed. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. She had won. Vanessa's face contorted in outrage. This is absurd. She's just a child. Enough, Mrs. Reed. Judge Ellis cut in sharply. Court is adjourned. The gavel struck. Aftermath in the hallway. In the hallway outside, Sophia leaned against the wall, her legs trembling. Maya hugged her tightly. You did it, she whispered. You actually did it. Daniel approached slowly, shame etched into every line of his face. I'm sorry, he said hoarsely. I should have protected you. Sophia looked at him for a long moment. The words she wanted to say warred inside her. Anger, grief, disappointment. But all she managed was, it's too late for sorry, Dad. But maybe not too late to change. He nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. Across the hall, Vanessa stormed away, Dylan hurrying after her. Her empire of control had cracked, and she knew it. For the first time in years, Sophia felt the air around her clear. The verdict echoed in Sophia's mind long after the gavel fell. Even as people shuffled out of the courtroom, voices murmuring, heels tapping. She sat frozen in her seat, staring at the wooden table before her. For months, she had imagined this moment, pictured Vanessa defeated, her lies dragged into the light. Now it was real. She had won. Her knees wobbled when she finally stood. Maya rushed to her side, slipping an arm around her waist. "Breathe," she whispered. "It's over." Sophia managed a shaky smile. Her chest felt tight, as though she might burst into tears or laughter at any second. But all she could do was nod. In the hallway, her father lingered awkwardly near the door. Vanessa had already stormed off, her fury trailing behind her like a cloud. Dylan followed at a distance, muttering something she didn't catch. Daniel looked older than ever, his eyes ringed with exhaustion. "I failed you," he said finally, voice hoarse. "I should have protected you from all of this. I should have stood up sooner." For a long moment, Sophia only studied him. This was the man who had once lifted her onto his shoulders at the park, who had taught her to ride a bike, who used to sit beside her at the kitchen table helping with math homework. That father seemed like a ghost now, buried under years of silence and avoidance. "It hurt," she said softly. "You hurt me by choosing her over me. I don't know if I can forgive that. But maybe things can still change. If you want them to." His throat bobbed. He nodded once, a gesture so small yet so heavy it seemed to sag his whole frame. Maya guided Sophia outside, into the cool air. The sky stretched blue and endless above them, as though mocking the storm that had just broken inside. Sophia inhaled deeply, filling her lungs with freedom. For the first time in months, she wasn't carrying the crushing weight of helplessness. The following weeks passed in a haze. Vanessa moved out after the judgment, her bitterness seeping into every slammed door and shouted insult until finally the house fell silent. Dylan visited occasionally, but he kept his distance from Sophia. Their relationship strained beyond repair. She didn't miss him. Daniel tried, in his quiet, faltering way. He cooked dinner one night, badly burned pasta, and left a note by her door another, apologizing for everything he hadn't said or done. Sophia didn't know if they could rebuild what had been broken, but she allowed small steps. Little by little, a fragile bridge began to form between them. Her focus, though, was on her future. The check Vanessa had been forced to write sat in Sophia's bank account like a promise, a tangible reminder of her resilience. She reapplied to the nursing program she had once feared slipping away from her grasp. When the acceptance letter came, she held it in trembling hands, laughter and tears mingling as she whispered, "I made it." Maya was the first person she called. "Pack your bags," Maya squealed through the phone. "You're going to college, Soph. You actually did it." The campus became a new world. The smell of fresh books, the chatter of students rushing between classes, the hum of possibility everywhere. Sophia threw herself into it all with a determination born of everything she had endured. While others complained about assignments or homesickness, she carried a different kind of gratitude. Every lecture, every late-night study session was a victory. She rented a small apartment with Maya near campus, its walls bare at first but soon filled with notes, laughter, and the smell of takeout dinners. For the first time, Sophia felt like her life was her own, untouched by Vanessa's shadow. Occasionally, memories tugged at her, Vanessa's cutting words, her father's silence, but they no longer defined her. Instead, they fueled her. She knew now that she was capable of standing on her own, of fighting for what was right even when no one else believed in her. One evening, months after the trial, Daniel visited her new apartment. He stood awkwardly in the doorway, holding a box of her childhood things he had found in the attic, old sketchbooks, a stuffed bear missing an ear, school essays yellowed with age. "I thought you might want these," he said quietly. Sophia took the box, her chest tight. "Thanks, Dad." He lingered, his gaze sweeping the apartment. "You've built a good life here," he murmured. "I'm proud of you." It was the first time in years she had heard those words from him. Tears pricked at her eyes, but she smiled. "I had to be strong," she said. "Stronger than I thought I could be." He nodded, a flicker of shame and pride mingling in his expression. You were stronger than all of us. When he left, Sophia sat on the couch, the box of memories beside her, and felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. The wounds hadn't vanished, but they were healing. She was no longer defined by betrayal, but by the courage it had awakened in her. The night was quiet outside, the city lights blinking in the distance. Sophia leaned back, closing her eyes. Tomorrow she would wake, go to class, chase her dream of becoming a nurse. Her path was her own now, paved with determination and hope. Vanessa's voice no longer echoed in her mind. Her father's silence no longer chained her spirit. She was free, and freedom, Sophia realized, was the greatest victory of all. And with that, our story comes to an end, but the real story begins with your thoughts. What would you do if you were in this situation? Let me know in the comments.